Hello, hello, friends. Thank you for tuning into the Odd Thoughts podcast. My name is Gunther, and I am your host. And wow, here we are at episode three. I've had a lot of fun doing the first two episodes. So, episode three, I've kind of spent a couple of days trying to think of some good ideas, and I've had, like I said, a lot of fun. So, I've been ready for doing another podcast. And I'm happy with what I've gotten as the feedback so far and the basic engagement. I don't know what I'm really expecting from it necessarily. So, any sort of engagement, any sort of viewership has been good. And I'm trying to balance everything, as well as trying to find things outside of podcasting that maybe kind of interest me or I could find exciting. Because I don't want podcasting to be just the one thing I do, but for right now, I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So, as if this is the way I'm getting my voice out there, then I think this is a pretty solid way to do it. Especially, as I've said before, I'm someone that talks to myself. So if I can put a microphone in front of me, maybe make me feel a little less bad about it, or make it more therapeutic in a way, because then it gives me an excuse to externalize it in more of a forward way, rather than just sitting there stewing in my own thoughts. So here we are, episode three. Sorry for the mouth clicking. But I'm excited for episode three. I'm trying to keep it just as free flowing and as free thought as possible with the first few episodes. I know that I've kind of talked about wanting to try to theme things a little bit, and I think the next couple podcasts, I'm trying to think about like what I want to do. But right now, I've just kind of had these things pop up in my head, these certain ideas, and as long as I can kind of ask a few questions about them, and that kind of leads me into then wanting to do a podcast, being able to write down the questions and kind of identifying things. So it's so far it's just been what's been kind of free forming. And I've like I said, podcasting is something that I know I'm enjoying. And it's kind of gone along with a lot of the other creative outlets. So I'm going to keep on just doing as I feel. And I won't ever know how things are going to go unless I put my voice out there. So, and that's kind of a sentiment for a lot of people is you don't really know unless you kind of put yourself out there. I know that I have a big fear of sometimes of just falling on my face without even trying. So I'm trying, and like I said, I don't know what the expectation is out of it, but I would like to grow this into something bigger and also more so grow this into a platform into other things. I don't want to just necessarily do podcasting. I would love to go on to do other forms of content, but also like things outside of just the world of maybe YouTube or getting into like I love voice acting, I love voiceover work, so that would be kind of an interesting things to do. And if I can capitalize off my art and off my writing and do something with that, then that's something that really interests me too. I'm just trying to spitball. I don't. This is so new to me, so I don't know really what what it looks like. I don't really know what if there's a blueprint to follow, or I just don't know what it looks like. So I'm gonna keep going, and we're gonna snowball into something else. But for right now, episode three of the Odd Thoughts podcast coming to you from my very amazing studio closet, at an undisclosed location in Carrollton, Texas. Oh no, I shouldn't have said that. Just kidding. But today's episode is something that hits pretty home for me, just like the first two episodes, and something that I think I probably struggle with pretty heavily, and that is admitting when you're wrong. Um, admitting when you're wrong it's a tough thing to do for some people. I think there's some people that don't necessarily feel any sort of like wrongness when they're quote what is even quote unquote wrong or right, anyways. But today I'd like to talk about that a little bit, kind of like realizing when you're wrong or who if you're finding out yourself or if someone's telling you and whether or not it's really a serious thing and whether it was justified and maybe even like the feelings that come along with that of admitting when you're wrong and really maybe then the exception of wanting to be right, whatever again whatever wrong or whatever right means. So let's get into it a little bit. Like I said, I know that I literally struggle with this so hard. I really struggle with the admitting when you're wrong. It's never really in the way of like wanting to be smarter than anybody or like trying to be the most intelligent this or like I think sometimes it just kind of like comes with the more I feel like more embarrassed a little bit and sometimes guilty because I've literally have known there's certain things that I've like quote unquote known in my life or whatever I thought that was fact or just kind of always have told myself and then like it turns out it's not real and some things are super innocent like recently I was like a couple days ago I was reading something about Blade and I was laughing so hard because one of the actors, the Whistler in Blade, is played by a man named Chris Christopherson. Sorry, And for a couple years ago, I remember like I just thought like for some reason I thought he was dead. And so I remember for years I told people like, "Oh man, rest in peace, Chris Christopherson," and nobody ever corrected me. And then a couple years ago, I was like talking to my dad, and he's like, "I don't think he's dead." And I was like, "What, really?" And then looking it up, and it's like, "Yeah, he's not dead." And it's like, okay, well, I felt a little guilty, a little embarrassed because I've been telling people that Chris Christopherson's dead. The guy's not dead. If you don't know who Chris Christopherson and he's an actor, music. He was in a Star Is Born. He was like in the '70s version. But he's a good, very famous actor, very talented, and I felt bad. But it was such a little innocent thing, but still, it was kind of embarrassing because it's like, oh man, I just kind of thought this my whole life, and or at least for not my whole life, but like for however long. I don't even, like I said, I don't even know where I heard it, and so like, but I've been telling people that. So sometimes it's innocent, but sometimes it really does. It's kind of a little more, maybe I don't want to say earth shattering. Maybe that's a little like melodramatic, but maybe it seems a little bit more like it's like, oh man, like maybe it's because like someone told you, you know, it's someone that you trusted for so long told you a certain thing, or maybe because like you kind of lived your life off a certain whatever, a certain you know, like proverb or not proverb, but like certain ideology or whatever, and then you get proven wrong. Like I said, whatever, you know, right or wrong means, you know. But then it can feel very embarrassing. But I feel like it it really always starts with that realization, right? And it comes in so many different ways. Whether or not it's by yourself or someone tells you, it has to start with that. It has to kind of start with the idea that maybe even keeping yourself open minded to the idea that maybe you are wrong about something. Because sometimes it kind of onsets. I don't always feel like it's just like an immediate, like, oh, you're wrong. So now you're gonna be right or whatever. So sometimes it's kind of it may be like a little thing here, a little thing there that kind of is built up to be like, oh well, I guess I guess I've been wrong, and that realization suddenly comes up, and then you get a flood of things, and some people I don't maybe really don't even feel anything. I feel some people just kind of let it bounce off of them and they keep it going. Especially when you maybe have that mindset of like, well, if I'm wrong, then why not just try to be right then? Or and like I said, whatever wrong or right means. But I think that's a great way to think of it in the way of like, well, if you're so and so wrong in whatever you have believed is wrong, then why not just try to correct yourself in whatever way that is, or try to better your truth and make sure that like then now you're living a more correct truth, or making sure you're more right, whatever that does mean. And then nobody's gonna remember the wrong. Usually when then you're kind of you're feeding into the right or whatever. Now you got your truth or whatever, or the truth. I think then that nobody's gonna remember that you were then wrong, usually. And if someone does, and that's a petty, ignorant person, and you can just like avoid that. If someone's really gonna try to hold you against for being, especially when you're making those like positive steps towards trying to be so and so, you know, called right, you know, whatever, then you know, it's tough. And especially when I feel like there's that difference between whether someone actually tells you or whether you realize yourself. Because when you realize yourself, you can kind of deal with it all on your own. And people may not ever know. You could just have believed something for so long, you know, so that maybe like a certain product was made from this ingredient or an actor was in this movie. Like I said, sometimes super nonchalant things, or something a little more earth shattering, like you believed maybe, you know, a certain family member was, you know, died this way, but really they died a certain other way or whatever. Or like that, like you've been trusted to maybe teach people a certain thing at a job, like you're training people, and you kind of told people a certain thing, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, no, because this is what the instruction or manual, yada yada, or what this is what the head of the company said. And then that can be kind of embarrassing, especially I don't think anybody really wants to be tested on it kind of maybe intermingles a little bit with your intellectual level. Not necessarily that your wrongness or your rightness determines how smart you are, but it does sometimes feel like it's like an attack on your intellectual intellect. Sorry, intellectualness. But it never really is. So because that's a weird balance of if you're wrong, then you can't blame someone for knowing something like I said, quote unquote wrong necessarily. Because they may not even necessarily learn to be that way, or they've like incorporated deep into their mind that the wrong is what is right. It's just something that sometimes you just go in your life, or you go along believing, or you go along just knowing is your truth, and then it just kind of comes to fruition. And especially like when people tell you, I know that's where I think I probably struggle with most in my own personal, like when I'm doing like my own like research on things, or I'm watching videos and I'm taking in information or whatever. Oh, I feel like if I learned, I'm like, man, I thought this was how this was for so long, but really it's like this. I find it kind of easier to, accept or to digest in the way of like, okay, I was wrong about this, so why not I just be right about it all of a sudden? And not to, like I said, not to be righter than anybody or be more intellectual than anybody or try to be like the smartest person. Always being a little smarter doesn't hurt. Always having a little more knowledge for yourself doesn't hurt. But it's more so like the idea of like, okay, well, like that kind of sucks. I'm just gonna make sure that like I flip it and I just know a little bit of a different truth. And always knowing that we came from a wrong, if you will, in relating to people that way, and also knowing how to come off to people, right? I think like it's always how you can maybe like it's sometimes it's just best to bite your tongue and not interject in what people believe, because sometimes it really isn't that serious. And when someone tells you that, oh, you're wrong, it's like how it's like, well, okay, like hold up, or is it like an aggressive way, or like if someone calling you out, or is it like, hey, like this is actually, really what it is, and da 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 da. That feels always a little more, calm, right? Nobody wants to be attacked in any way. It doesn't matter if it's in a way of like, oh, them telling you're wrong, or for anything. You don't want to be attacked. So like, how do you take that? How do people process it? Because I've known some people that are just so like, ah, whatever, like, okay, whoops, I was wrong. Like, now, I'm right now. So, and that's always a good way to look at it. But then it also kind of maybe if you're someone that like is the someone that calls people out for being wrong, and maybe you don't necessarily mean it maliciously. Sometimes that like interaction of like, oh well, okay, whatever, like, and then you're like, well, but it's not whatever. And I think I sometimes struggle with that too. I don't ever mean to be like, like, oh, you're wrong, you're stupid for being wrong, or why, you should be right. Why wouldn't you want to be right? It's never like that. I just sometimes just my mouth moves. And my brain's like, oh, no, no, hold on, no, no, oh, God dang it, and then my mouth is just going. And I come off as rude sometimes, and I don't ever want to be rude or mean to anybody. I just am very black and white sometimes, so I come off very blunt. And like I said, it's kind of a melodramatic thing to say, earth shattering, right? Because it's not. It's definitely not an earth shattering thing when you find out you're wrong. But sometimes, based off of that, like, how do you find out level? And is it super serious or is it super not? And how does that really justify or directly affect your life? Are you kind of just saying things, based off of your own life that you've been lying about? Or like you thought like something happened upon you and you've been kind of telling it a certain way? Or is it, like I said, like what I was saying earlier about me thinking Chris Christopherson was dead? Is it really just that simple? And is it a justified thing, really, even too? That's another thing. Is sometimes being wrong doesn't even matter. Is it really a justified thing to then really think like, oh, come up with that inception of, oh, is this a wrong thing to think or is this a wrong thing to believe? How justified is it? Because everybody's a little different, and especially in a moment. Because maybe in this one moment when someone tells you like, "Hey, this is kind of actually how things are," like this, you may be a little bit wrong on this. In one moment, you may be like, "Ah, what? Why would you tell me that? Like, why come at me like that? Like, why would you say that?" Then maybe like in another moment, like a day later, if they would have came to you a day later, you would have been in a totally different space or whatever. So it also is it a trusted thing, I guess, too, right? Because it's whatever. It's so like because justified is a weird thing of is it really ever truly justified to tell someone something? Like it's even goes in a line of if someone's got like a wedgie, like you go up to them, you kind of is it embarrassing to tell someone they have a wedgie if they have a wedgie, or do you like just go non discreetly? And if it's a stranger, then why should they trust you? You'd be like, hey, you got a wedgie. Why would they even like then believe you necessarily? And then like you walk away and they pull it out or whatever type thing. So it's some people what's that level of trust that you have with someone? How do you even know this person? And what's the willingness you have to call someone out or be called out too? Because if you're someone who lets your opinions be known, or you're someone who maybe engages in some sort of intellectual discussion, or you're someone who like loves to just like learn a couple things, I think like you're gonna realize that what you believed, or you're gonna continue to as you'd express express different opinions, you're gonna realize that maybe you're not always right, or you didn't know how to maybe configure the thought, or iterate the thought more so, and so it could come off as wrong, but you still got the kind of the right ideals. And that's I think a good way to kind of then think about, in the way of like in the way of like, is wrong even like a necessary thing? Like, what is wrong, what is right, and has it really affected you, and for how long too? Because if it's a truth that you kind of held on for a long time, I think that might be a little more hurtful. Something that you believed for a long time, especially, like I've said, like if it was someone that you trusted, or that you feel is like it's a justified thing if it's coming from them, then it may be a little more hurtful. What if it's just like a certain random fact that you really don't spend much thought on, or you don't really spend much of like any sort of like energy on? Then it don't really matter necessarily, huh? Maybe it's like a little white lie, a little white wrong, right? It's just a little, it's, oh, I'm just a little wrong. And what is, like I said, it always goes back to that question I keep saying, what is even right, what is even wrong necessarily. But there are those certain truths. I think we can all, obviously there are certain crimes, or there are certain things that you do onto people, or literally certain basic scientific fact, or certain just fact in society that you're wrong. If you sit there and you say like, "Oh, Hitler definitely didn't kill 6 million Jews." Sorry for using that example. You're a little crazy, because that's a definite truth. You know what I'm saying? So it's yeah, it's one of those things. How is it really going to hurt anybody? And also, is it going to hurt you if you're going around just believing the wrong things? Then yeah, then what are you doing? What is that? Is anybody in your life telling you anything? And that's another question, even deeper in itself. Is your general, like, people you surround yourself with, your kind of your community, are you just all wrong? And that's a big question. It's certain, everybody's, I think, has in their families like a certain like fact, or a certain thing that's been passed down that you've always believed. And maybe it is like a truly like factual, proven behind whatever things, like stats or whatever, proven thing, but it's also whatever. It's everybody in your family, that's an accepted truth, I guess, even more so. So then when is wrong, does it even matter when it's an accepted truth, right? What is even an accepted truth nowadays? I don't know. It's so complicated. It almost feels like you can't be wrong nowadays sometimes, especially like you could always look in the idea of discussion. The simplicity of just being right then being wrong then right, or being right then wrong. I think there's a little more subtleties to it, and you work through a lot more. You're not just like, okay, well now I'm right, okay, or I was wrong and now I'm right, or like, well, I was right, well now I'm wrong, or whatever. Like, I don't think it's necessarily that simple. You take a couple steps, and it takes the realization. It takes maybe realizing how long you've like believed a certain thing, and then maybe accepting the fact that maybe you do need to up what you, or not up, but become right, or learn up on what you think, what you believed before. And I go into a lot of things when I'm doing research, or I'm talking about whatever with anybody. I'm always trying to go into it with the both sides, the left and the right side, the black and the white, the up and the down type thing, and the situation of like, well, like I kind of maybe have a truth, or maybe I know something's going to be true, but what is the other side? And what are the points on the other side that maybe either iterate what I believe is my truth and what I believe to be fact, or can maybe like poke the holes in what I have believed is the truth, or what is fact, and then actually help me lead myself towards a certain truth. And I'm always trying to better myself on and learning myself on things, and I think everybody is should at least take that attempt too. Because it's intricacies, right? It's so little with the little things you do, and it may never come to fruition on the wrongdoing you've done, or the things that you believe are so and so wrong, that it may never come up. So you may never have to have that moment of admitting that you're wrong. And what does even admitting really do? Because you could just, I'm so big on, sometimes I'm so big on just like, if someone who says sorry, it's like, okay, well, you just said sorry. That's all you really said. Sorry is just a word. So what are you going to do with your actions? I'm someone that like, I hate just sitting there and saying sorry all the time, because like, it's like, I'm not really doing anything. I'm not having any action behind anything. So I'm just saying sorry. So like, for someone to say like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Okay, fine. Sorry. It's like, it's kind of like, okay, well then what are you going to do, for on, what are you going to keep going on with? Are you gonna like shun that little thing out of your life, and you're just gonna like not even gonna like think about being wrong or right on it? Or are you gonna take a step to maybe even try to change that, and maybe even like lets it like downfall or water down, trickle down into whatever other aspects of your life. And I think that's kind of a cool thought is restitution, redemption in a way. Being wrong and then being right. Even if your world flips and you thought you were right and then you become wrong, I think that gives you the conceptual. Maybe even that's an easier thing of like, well, maybe if originally you were so believing in a fact and then you're proven wrong and then you're kind of like, okay, well, now I just know for sure that this is the other side and that's probably what's really right. Because some wrongs I don't think some people are even convinced in their wrongs. They just kind of maybe know things and they're like, well, I don't even know if that's the truth. Something I feel like I'm always someone that like I'll hear something or I think I read something and I'm like, yeah, I think that's how that goes, you know? And sometimes not people aren't fact checking me. Sorry, fact checking me. So like I just kind of go around and I just say things sometimes. Not like and like I'm not trying to tell people thing or like trying to like be that like, oh, a matter of fact, or well, if you didn't know that, it's like never trying to be that person. But like I said, I always love discussing and I like learning things. And when I learn things, I like to tell people because it's kind of like it's like, oh, look at this cool thing I got. Ooh, do, do, do. So I feel like I probably spread a little bit of misinformation out there. You know what I'm saying? And some of it I don't feel guilty for because I don't know it's necessarily wrong, but some things have been kind of ingrained in my life that it does feel a little bit hurtful when I've been said so, or I've kind of maybe convinced myself, especially like I think I get more my embarrassment or maybe more a little bit of a guilt that I feel when I'm at, like admitting that I'm wrong is maybe there's a energy or a certain emotion and I'm kind of attached to something. I get kind of I convince myself through my emotion a lot. Like when I'm really down on myself and I feel very depressed, I'm super down on myself. I start talking crazy and I start talking about like like, well, I'm never going to be able to get this. I'm never going to be worth this. Or, podcasting is never going to work out for me. Or why do I even bother, waking up? And why do I even bother doing this? So I get so like down on myself. And I get so convinced that like, and I say things oh, nobody loves me. Nobody really wants this thing. Or, no, 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 no. And so I get so down on myself. And then like, I have people in my family tell me like, "Oh no, your podcasting is great, Gunther," or like, I got people saying that they love me, and like, it's like, okay, okay, maybe I'm wrong a little bit, and then or like recently like shout out to this dude, but I recently got a text from one of my guys, someone I went to high school with. His name is Saki. For anybody that knows who Saki is, he also went by Michael, but Saki is what we all knew him as. And he texted me and told me that he loved my podcast. And I don't know. It made me feel really good. It kind of was like, especially from him. Like I always really respected him, and he was a good dude. So like coming from him, I was like, holy crap! Like, and he had my number, and I was like, oh man, I guess I've had this number for probably 10 years or something. Like, so it surprised me. It was just like, and it was literally in the day. Like I was feeling so bad about myself that day. I was just so down on myself, and I was just losing it. And the fact that he said something like really boosted me, and then it made me feel guilty. It made me feel embarrassed to even have head into that energy. And I got upset with myself. And I'm kind of like, man, you sit there and like, there are genuinely people out here that don't have love and that are genuinely down on themselves. And you're just sitting here feeling this way. And my opportunity, and I'm very blessed to say that my opportunity is in a greater situation than a lot of people. And I don't take that for granted. I don't. I generally try to wake up every day knowing that I've been blessed with an opportunity to just be alive. I got the chance to open up my eyes. I'm getting a chance to go on my laptop that costs a few $100s, and I get to talk on my microphone, and I get to like watch videos on my phone, and I get to eat food. And believe me, I see my blessings every day. So it makes me feel bad when I feed into those kind of those thoughts of those wrong thoughts because they are wrong. It's okay to be sad and it's okay to be a little critical of yourself, but I'm just blatantly lying to myself when I tell myself like I was like, oh, I don't deserve this, or I can't do this, or like, why would anybody want, or whatever. Like when I start saying that stuff, or or in maybe a subverse of like not necessarily being depressed, but when I get angry, I get super intense, and I really like, I just get so pissed off about certain things, and so like, and then that's when the embarrassment really intensifies. It's not more, it doesn't lean towards guilt, it leads more towards like, well, fuck, okay, it's like God, sorry for my language. But that's when it leads more towards like God, like And I have people around me that love like helping me out, or that they want to help me out as much as they want, as much as possible, but also like they know that the best thing to do is sometimes just let me be. And that is sometimes the best thing to do, because I find it more often than not, truly, that I think I realize my wrongdoings when I kind of sit in my own thought. I don't know if that's necessarily an everybody thing, if that's what everybody feels, or if that's what kind of works for everybody. But sometimes I do genuinely feel, when I get a chance to sit there and I get to think about kind of what I believed or how I was acting, or kind of the things that I thought were my truth, or what I had worked up in my head to be my truth or my fact, then I kind of like sit there and I start to realize, well, maybe I am wrong. And so, sometimes for some things, I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong so bad, because then that justifies that justifies that kind of delusional feeling of that I was feeling, or that kind of like, that blasé attitude that I had towards a certain feeling or idea or thought. And my emotions get heavy, so I'm always feeling, I get so swayed in the moment. And but like I said, when I get left on my own, I feel like I sometimes work through it a little bit better. It's not perfect, but it works. I definitely don't want to take it out on other people. That's my big thing. So um, and I think that's a hard thing to also realize, more so of wanting to be right, whatever that does mean. And what does right kind of constitute? Is it gonna, are you doing it so that everybody then kind of accepts you, which is maybe not necessarily the way to think of it? Or are you doing it to maybe give yourself a peace of mind? Are you really trying to find your truth to make sure that you are all good up in the head? That's more so kind of the journey that I'm on. I think that that's kind of a common journey that I think most people should be on, is that your knowledge is only, you're only really learning things to only better yourself. Everything that you learn, everything that you pick up should be an addition to yourself. And as you keep picking up information, you keep learning, when the little wrongs come up, that doesn't negate all the other truths that you have in your life. Something that I'm coming to realize more as well. I happen to be right on a lot of things. I'm I'm happening to do a lot of rights in my life. So when I get these couple wrongs in my head and I feel so stupid, and it's kind of like, it's like, okay, well, Gunther, remember, like, it's like the 1 out of 10 things, you weren't wrong about these other things, but then you get this one wrong, and you feel a little stupid, you feel a little embarrassed about it. And especially like I said, I don't want to release it on other people, and I don't want to like always be so outward with that emotion. I can't help it sometimes. So I keep having in my head that I'm negating all those good when I'm kind of like acting in the wrong, and especially like when it comes to the admitting I'm wrong. And I'm someone that like I said, I say sorry so often, but I'll say sorry for no reason. You know what I'm saying? I'll just say sorry because I think someone needs to hear it, which it's not very healthy, because then you're just apologizing, what, for every single action you do. Are you wrong about everything? I don't think so. I don't think I'm wrong about everything. So I'm starting to feel a little bit better about that, and realizing that, like, you're always going to be you're always going to find another thing to be wrong about. Just, sorry for the snort. Sorry, golly, it's kind of a funny thing to. It's just like I said, you're always going to be a little wrong about something. And it's best just to surround yourself with people, or continue to learn the truth. Surround yourself with people that maybe know a little bit better than you do about something. And if you're going through life, and you may be wrong about something, and you're not malicious behind that intent of being wrong. It's just something that you've never even like learned to be right about, or have thought to go journey into being right about. And also always finding out what really is your truth. And really, if it doesn't even matter what wrong is, and how is it affecting anybody, and what are you gonna do about it when it comes to, like, after you've been proven wrong, quote unquote proven wrong, whatever that means, whatever you determine that means. That's a little bit of a ramble, I guess. It's kind of hard admitting when you're wrong. It's a touchy little feel subject, because it's more based on, like, I think, how you feel in the moment. I really do. And some people are so, like, with like, I think they always have those moments of like, oh, whatever, like, okay, I'm wrong. I want to be right. And that's a good way to think of it, is like, if you're wrong about something, then why not correct yourself, but also doing it on your own terms? And is it going to benefit you? And really, like, what is the right, and how far off is the wrong? And then there's always going to be some people like me who maybe feel a little more guilty, or feel a little more embarrassed when it comes to that. And I don't think I should ever feel embarrassed about being a little bit wrong. I should only feel embarrassed or guilty about being wrong when I've let it affect other people. That's a big thing. Is am I purposely going around telling people that of these wrong things? Definitely not. So I can give myself a little leeway and say like, hey, like it's okay, Gunther. Like you're a little bit wrong here, but that ain't the end all be all of everything. So keep your, I'm gonna keep my truths and make sure that I know what truths I have and keep going with that. I always stay relevant to a topic too. Just because I'm right on these 10 things and I'm wrong on one thing doesn't necessarily negate, it's like the one wrong doesn't negate the 10 right things, but also like those 10 right things may not even like equivocate to the one wrong thing, you know what I'm saying? Like so that's something to think about. All right. I'm running out of things to talk about. I just wanted to come on and do another episode. I'm having fun. So I'm going to continue to do it. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep rolling and I'm going to try to think of something a little different for the next episode. Like I said, I've tried to keep it just kind of free flowing, just whatever's been on the top of my head, like the general odd thoughts that come throughout the day I'm just trying to keep it as free discussion as possible, getting my voice out there, kind of getting used to talking and working through ideas. And I know that like I can always improve and I can always better my content. So next episode, I'm thinking about kind of, I'm thinking about doing a more themed episode, not just kind of like based off of like a feeling or kind of a certain circumstance in life. I think I'm gonna have a little fun with the next episode. I think the next episode I kind of want to do I'm gonna either do my favorite horror movies. Maybe I'll do like a top five, maybe a top 10 list, depending on like how many, movies I come up with, how long I talk about each movie. Or I kind of want to do something like movies, music, like general media, pop culture that's turned 25. A quarter century. I think that's kind of like a good like, mark, you know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of things. I'm turning 27 in a less than a week, and so as I get a little older, I'm kind of realizing it's just funny to see like kids that are like 10, 15 years younger than me kind of discovering these things from the late 90s, early 2000s. And I'm kind of like, oh man, it's like embarrassing. I'm kind of like, yeah, we used to like that stuff. Yeah, we used to dress like that. So what? We used to talk like that. Don't yell at us. It's funny. It's I'm 27 years old almost, man. I don't gotta impress no 12-year-olds, man. Just forget them, man. But and I'm trying to figure out content to do outside of podcasting. I'm really trying. I do want to get up on camera. I don't have like a professional camera, but I got a phone and I got a crappy webcam on my computer, so maybe I can do something with that. Try to do like short formed videos too, not trying to do like full 30-minute like podcast or 30-minute whatever on my phone. Just do like shorter clips and little things here and there and try to stumble on. And like I said, I want to try to maybe get into the narration storytelling style stuff. I love doing characters. I really do. So that'd be kind of fun to maybe venture into that and whatever else I can think of. I just want podcasting to kind of launch me into other things. I want podcasting to take off as much as it can, but I also want to be able to have it connect and give me confidence in other things and maybe even create like a hub for all of my content and all of the things that I'm kind of doing to make sure that like I really can hone in all these skills and hone everything in and I'm becoming more confident. I really am. I'm working through everything. I'm trying to be better on the mic. It's hard for me. It's hard to work through some thoughts sometimes, and I'm trying to come at this with such a fresh idea. I'm not trying to overthink things, and I'm not trying to be too like hit certain points in my script. And I've got questions written down here, but like how much am I really going to stick to them? It's more about just trying to get the ideas in my head. But yeah, anyways, I'm done. I'm done talking. I appreciate everybody listening. I'm gonna post this up on YouTube. That's where I've been posting all my podcasts. You can also follow me on Facebook. It's just Gunther Getlicker. That's my name. And also on Instagram, it's Gunther Getlicker. Both of the G's are lowercase on Instagram and Facebook. They're both capitalized G's. So if anybody wants to go and follow me on that, that'd be great. But besides that, I appreciate y'all stopping by and listening to episode 3 of the Odd Thoughts podcast. My name is Gunther, and I'm having a lot of fun. And just remember, everybody, be excellent to each other.